There's a cursed highway right down the road from our house. Story time. People call it the road that eats children, and you'll see why. As kids, we were all taught not to go anywhere near this road because so many children and pets had died out there, and some adults too. There have been so many wrecks because of people seeing things that aren't there. Locals think that this road is cursed, and it lures victims out there by showing them a loved one, someone who may be alive or has passed on, just something to lure you in. So back in the early 70s, there was a man, woman, and their 3 kids, and they pulled into a church parking lot that was located on this road. So Dad goes into the church to talk to the pastor while Mom and the kids wait out in the truck. So all of a sudden, while Dad's in the church, he hears tires squalling, a loud bam, and people start screaming. He runs outside, and that's when he finds out the mom had let the kids out to play, and his 3-year-old son had run out the highway and got hit by a Mack truck. The mom and siblings swear that he all of a sudden stood up, began smiling, and said bop bop, and took off running towards the road. Bop bop was his grandpa who died a month prior, and they think that's what he saw in the highway. But they don't think it was his grandpa's spirit. They think it was a demon pretending to be Bop Bop to get him out there. But about 10 years ago, they bulldozed down that old church, and a new family bought this property and moved in, and this older woman was babysitting her 3-year-old grandson on a regular basis. So on this summer day, they cooked, they played, they watched TV, they were just having a great time together. Around lunch, she goes in the bathroom, and while she's in there, her 3-year-old grandson manages to slip out the door. She comes out the bathroom, she don't see him, she calls his name, he don't answer, so she goes out the front door, and that's where she sees this baby with his arms wide open run into the highway. He was smiling ear to ear when he was hit by a Mack truck right in front of his grandma. She was less than 5 feet behind him when he was hit by that truck, and she was almost hit herself. This poor baby was gone, and there wasn't much left of him after the impact. The truck driver was going the speed limit. He didn't even know he'd hit anything. He glances in a side mirror, and that's where he sees a woman running out of her yard, and she drops down in the middle of the highway, so he thinks she's in trouble. He slams on brakes, turns around, and runs back up to the scene, and that's where he learns he hit a child. They had fenced in that entire yard to make it childproof, and they even had a special lock on the gate, but for some reason the gate was standing wide open. Nobody knows who did it. What's crazy? Grandma sold the property, and on the day she was moving out, she pulled her grandson's cross out the ground, and she was hit and killed by a truck. So back in the late 80s, 2 5-year-old children were seen playing alone out in their yard on the edge of this highway. So the one child said, the other child stood up and said, "There's my Mima," and then he took off running out to the highway. But this one said he didn't see anyone out there, but the other one kept running, and he got hit by a car. Another woman who grew up down the road from this said that when she was 6 or 7 years old, she used to hear this tapping on her window late at night, and when she looked, it was a black shadowy figure trying to get her to go out into the road, but she wouldn't go because it was too dark. One time this thing told her that her new cat was out there on the road, so she put on her shoes and coat because she didn't want it to get hit, and right when she got to the door, her mama snatched her up and said, "No, you're not going out there, it's too dangerous," and she stopped her. Her mama probably saved her life. Another man said that while his wife was at work at the hospital on night shift, his twin sons, who were 7, would tell him that they saw something floating around the house, and it was trying to get them to come outside and play. He had to put locks on all the doors and windows and build a damn fence around their house that the kids couldn't get through because they were steady trying to go out to that damn road. A girl I went to school with said that when she was getting on the bus one morning, she heard this whiny sound like a kitten, and when she went and leaned down in the ditch, that was when a big truck came out of nowhere and almost hit her. She jumped back so hard that she fell in the ditch and got soaking wet, and the truck barely missed her, but when she looked down in the ditch, there were no animals in there. Another little girl who was 8 years old lived on that same road, and she was getting off the school bus one day when a driver flew past the bus and hit her. The driver kept going and didn't even stop to check on her. So the bus driver and the kids all get off, and they call 911, and she's airlifted to Wilmington, and she has been disabled ever since. A bad wreck that I personally saw on that road was when I was in 6th grade. This woman comes flying up in a little car behind our bus. That big tractor with all those discs was just a few feet ahead of us, and that was why our bus driver was going so slow. So this woman tries to go around us. She stomps the gas, but when she goes around the bus, another truck is coming in the opposite lane, so she has to swing it back over in between the tractor and the bus. This woman lost control of her car, and she slammed into the back of that tractor and rammed that car up into those discs. The discs ate the front of her car. I mean, they went right on up into the windshield and decapitated her. I had nightmares about that wreck for weeks. So back in the late 80s, one of my distant relatives was on a tractor going out to a field to plow it, and he put his 5-year-old son on his lap to ride the tractor with him while their mama was at home making lunch. The mom would always tell him, "Be careful with him on the tractor, please don't let go, don't let him fall." And the dad was like, "Dude, my whole family's been riding tractors forever and we've never had nothing happen. He'll be fine." So as they're going into the field, a big truck came out of nowhere and almost hit him. The father has to pull the tractor off the road and back on, and when he does, the little boy falls off the tractor and ends up going under the disc. He was mangled up. And then this poor man had to go home and tell his wife what happened to their son, and she went all to hell. So needless to say, a lot of really bad things have happened on this highway, and that's why people are so scared to drive on it.
Y'all want to hear a story? This is the story of the Devil's Highway, what was once known as Route 666, which is considered one of the most famous haunted roads in all of the United States. This road begins in Monticello, Utah, and runs all the way to Gallup, New Mexico, running through Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and once upon a time, Arizona. Prior to the road's inclusion in the U.S. system in the 1920s, this route included the Navajo Trail and the Old Spanish Trail. It was numbered 666, not because of any sinister connotation at the time, but because it was the sixth branch of Highway 66, unintentionally referring to the number of the beast and its association with the devil. This road became known as the Devil's Highway, and people believed it cursed. There has been an unusually high number of accidents and fatalities on this stretch of road. In fact, a state trooper that was interviewed in 1990 told a USA Today reporter that, quote, "666 is evil. Everyone dies on that highway." And many of these accidents are believed to have supernatural causes. And this road is chock full of different legends and stories about what happens here. One of the most popular stories is that of Satan's sedan, a black car that appears at nightfall and speeds up on drivers. It usually zooms past the car and then disappears. So some claim this ghostly sedan has even bumped their bumper before swerving around them and disappearing. There is a phantom hitchhiker, a young woman in white who tries to wave down drivers, and then if someone pulls over, she disappears. Then there's the mad trucker, which is a lot like Satan's sedan, but actually more scary because it's an 18-wheeler that appears, and it's coming at you head on in the center of the road. It's always moving extremely fast. Most people that see it say that it's moving at about 100 miles an hour. Some witnesses even claimed that it was moving so fast that it was like throwing sparks, while others described the truck as being engulfed in flames. It's believed this mad trucker sightings have been responsible for several of these fatal accidents. And if that's not scary enough for you, there's also reports of hounds of hell that run around. Packs of wild black dogs with glowing yellow or red eyes. And it said these dogs run as fast as a car can drive and will run alongside cars and keep up with them. And they've also said to cause wrecks by running in front of cars or even swarming cars and like trying to attack it. And it said these hellhounds have claws and teeth sharp enough to shred a tire. There's also a specific section of the road between Navajo Nation and these Ute Mountains that is said to be known territory of skinwalkers. These skinwalkers are said to act in a very specific pattern. Usually you will see it first in a human form, appearing as like a medicine man walking along the side of the road or standing there, who will motion you to stop or to turn around or otherwise communicate with you that you should turn around. And if this warning is ignored and the driver keeps on anyway, later on down the road, that skinwalker appears in the backseat in their monstrous animal form, which usually causes wrecks, or worse, the skinwalker steals the person's soul and their skin. Ooh. The skinwalkers are also said to appear sometimes in the middle of the road in an attempt to cause a wreck so that they can get to the person and steal their soul and their skin. Along with the abnormally high number of accidents and fatalities on the road, there have also been an eerily high number of disappearances, along with missing time. There have been people who have gone missing that later reappear walking along the side of the road and disoriented, confused, and not knowing how they got there or how long they've been gone. Others disappear along this road and are never seen again. So sometimes when people are searching for the missing people, they'll find random belongings of theirs or pieces of their car in the middle of the road. Other people have driven along the road and had missing time incidents where they get to the end either way too fast or way too slow. For some reason, the passage of time here is strange. This road has been absolutely notorious for decades, and some people in the areas refuse to drive it at all, saying they ain't getting on no road named after the devil. Apparently, even some of the states agreed with that, because in 1992, Arizona removed the US 666 designation from their state and replaced it with the southern end of US 191. And in 2003, the remaining states of the Devil's Highway were able to change their route number 2, replacing it with the US 491. So there are signs that pretty much point out that it's the old 666 and the new 491. This change was done not only in an attempt to negate the curse by removing the devil's number, but also because people kept stealing the signs. It got expensive for the transportation department. As far as that curse goes, most people say that the change didn't help all that much. The highway is still considered very strange, pretty dangerous, and extremely paranormally active. It's said if you're driving along that road, you can feel the change as the sun goes down, when unexplained feelings of fear and dread begin to creep up on you, and all the things that haunt this road come out to roam. Have any of y'all ever traveled down the Devil's Highway? And did you experience anything creepy? Let me know.
This is why you don't stop for strangers in the foothills of North Carolina. The year was 1997 or 98, he couldn't remember for sure, but the job he had at the time, he worked second shift. He would get off usually around 12:30, and this one particular night, one of his female co-workers needed a ride home. She lived about 30 minutes out of his way, but it was a cold night and she had no other way home, so he agreed to take her home and drop her off. So he remembers driving back home this night, and at the time he said he had an old truck. It had the windows you had to crank down, and it had a bench seat. He was familiar with this stretch of road. He had drove it many times, and he was aware that there wasn't many houses. It was kind of secluded. It was in the middle of winter and an extremely cold night. As he pulled up to this intersection, there are no other cars, but this time it's between 1 and 1:30 a.m., so it's a very desolate road, no traffic. But he does see someone standing on the white line. And you have to keep in mind this was 97, 98, before cell phones were really a thing. Bag phones, a few people had them, but not many. So he seen this person standing on the white line on the road, and so he thought perhaps something was wrong. This person was injured or needed help. He slowed down, and he had to slide across the bench seat and manually roll down the window. And all the while he's getting closer to this person, but very slowly. And he then can see that this person has on a very long, he described parka with a fur collar. As he slowly inches closer to this person, or what he thinks is a person, he noticed the hood is pulled up over their head. And just as he is getting ready to ask, is everything okay, this thing turns around and he discovers it has no face. And he didn't mean just it was dark out and he couldn't see any features. He said there was no face at all. So he was obviously freaked out, and he jumped back over to the driver's side and slammed on the gas, and he got out of there. He had no explanation for what this could have been, a ghost or a demon. Sometime later, he said he was in a bookstore and found a book about ghosts and people sharing their personal experiences. And as he was thumbing through it, he read a few stories of people who encountered a very similar type spirit or creature, just like he had. If you've ever encountered anything like this, let me know in the comments. If you have any kind of paranormal story, any kind of picture, video, my email is listed in my bio. You guys have a great day. God bless.
True stories from Highway 666 from truckernews.com. I was on Highway 666 somewhere in Arizona, and I was on my final hour. It was about midnight, I think. And I was looking for a truck stop that was supposedly just a few miles up the road. Came up a big mountain at a 7% grade, and I started to come down the other side when I looked over and saw someone in a flannel jacket just sitting in my passenger seat. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and my dog started to growl. And then, for some odd reason, I said out loud, "I must be going too fast." The ghost nodded yes, so I hit the Jake and tapped the brakes and broke it down. But by the time I looked over, he was gone. I got to the truck stop and went inside. The lady at the desk asked me if I was all right, so I told her what had happened. She said a driver had went off the cliff late one night and died, and he shows up to warn people when they're going too fast. Straight up, no bullshit. I still think about this, and it was about 5 years ago. The end.
They renamed it to Route 491 to quiet the fear, but the locals and those who know remember it as Route 666, the Devil's Highway. Stretching across New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, Route 666 has a chilling past. Cars vanish without a trace, drivers black out and lose track of hours, and some claim to even see creatures. There are whispers of a black sedan known as Satan's sedan. This car appears behind drivers, tailgating them up to 100 miles per hour. If you don't get out of the way, the car vanishes, but you do not. Others report being chased by giant black red-eyed demon dogs that are faster than any vehicle. Some of these have even left claw marks on the vehicles. Some people refer to them as demon dogs, others refer to them as skinwalkers. And then there's an anti-gravity time-wiping zone. It's a 3-mile stretch of the highway where drivers have reported their watches have stopped, their GPSs keep looping in circles, and the travelers lose entire hours of time and don't recollect any of it. Some drivers have came through this zone and came out an entirely different person. But nothing is more disturbing than the story I'm about to share with you. This story is from a now deleted Reddit user The post is titled The Devil's Highway on Reddit No Sleep. After I got out of high school, I had a lot of trouble finding a job. I'd had some problems at home that led me to being something of a firebug. And while I never did any serious damage, it gave me enough of a permanent record to make me a risk to any potential employer. I didn't want to keep working at my crappy burger flipping job, so I called around to what I'm pretty sure was almost 200 businesses all around Albuquerque and beyond. The one that wound up hiring me was a towing company all the way in Gallup, run by a tough old guy named Albert. I was a little more than reluctant to take the job because, it's Gallup, the murder capital of the state. But the pay was surprisingly good, so I packed up my few things and moved 2 hours west. I didn't know jack about towing, so for my first few weeks, I just rode along with Albert and he showed me the ropes. This sounds like it would be easy or even fun, but he was one hell of a hard ass. The kind of guy who would let you do the whole setup before tearing it all down because you messed up some tiny little thing. At the time, it seemed like he was just a sadistic asshole, but looking back, I can see that he was just safety oriented and worried that a clueless newbie would screw up big time if he wasn't hard on me. To be honest, he was probably right. Anyway, the story that I want to tell took place after I'd been working at the towing company for about a month. It was January 11th, 2004. I was staring at a calendar on the wall waiting for my shift to end when the call came in. I got it on the second ring, silently cursing, getting a new job at 4:45. Hello, this is Loki Kama Towing. How may I help you today? Is, Albert there? The man on the other end of the line asked. Yeah, I can get him on if you want to speak to him, or I can take a note. I opened the desk drawer and produced a notepad and pulled a pen out of my pocket. No, I just wanted to make sure this was the right place, he coughed. This is Officer Peterson speaking. There's a car off the road near the turn to Service Road 9. We need it taken to storage. All right, we'll get out there soon, I said. The call ended and I set the phone back on the cradle, blowing wind out of my cheeks. I hated having to take cars off Route 666 to storage because they always ended up in missing person cases. I'd already helped with 2 last month, and going through records on my break told me that there had been more than a dozen in the last 2 years alone. And it was always the same. The res cops or sometimes state police would find a car in the ditch somewhere on the highway, doors standing wide open, and all the people gone, their tracks disappearing a few hundred feet into the desert. Sometimes there was even a second car that pulled over to help them in a similar state. No one ever found the bodies. The door to the bathroom and Albert stepped out, clenching his belt with a slight frown on his face. Somebody call? Oh yeah, I said. Another car off the road near Service Route 9. Albert sighed. Damn. He checked his watch. Do you want to come? I can do it myself. Nah, I really didn't have that much to do other than watch TV, and I had a feeling that Albert would judge me for dipping out. Albert shrugged and walked towards the garage. I scrambled after him, managing to catch the door just before it closed and barrel through. I locked it behind me, mindful of how I'd been chewed out the last time I'd left it unlocked, then hurried over to the passenger's door and scrambled inside. Albert had already had the engine started and didn't even wait for me to buckle my seatbelt before putting the truck in drive. The truck rumbled through the side streets before turning onto the highway. I filled Albert in on the brief call, and then we drove in silence, myself staring out at the darkening sky. The stars were starting to show, and even with the light level, there was dozens more than there were when I lived in the city. After 20 minutes of driving, we rolled through the small town of Twin Lakes, more of a cluster of buildings rather than a small town, and I turned my focus to the road in front of us. The turnoff that the officer had reported is only a couple of minutes beyond the town, and I wanted to get a good look at the crash site so we could get it out easier. The lights of a stop state police car came into view, and Albert slowed the truck, no doubt wondering, as was I, why there was only a state car there. We were a good way into the res, and the Navajo cops preferred to handle these cases themselves without getting the state authorities involved. The 2 other times I'd seen cases like this, the cars were at the scene where the res police, and even then there was always 2. This was weird. The truck slowed to a stop beside the car, and Albert rolled the window down, looking to the other vehicle's open window. I leaned forward and stared into the police car. It was a red minivan with its front buried in the dirt, and all of its doors wide open, and junk spewing out onto the ground. This was going to be a tough job. Howdy, you're Officer Peterson, no? Asked Albert. The officer turned to look at him wearing a trooper hat and dark shades so large that you could barely make out sickly-looking skin around his beard. He looked like he'd been living in a cabin in the hills for the past year. A few long seconds after Albert had spoken to him, he nodded in such a robotic manner that it reminded me of druggies that I had gone to school with. Albert's eyes flicked from the car to the wrecked van. "You're sure we can get this one moving and it won't disrupt anything? Have the techs gotten out here yet?" The officer nodded stiffly again, and Albert shot me a worried look. As I'd previously mentioned, I had a fairly serious record, and so did my boss. Pissing off some nutjob cop would be real bad for the both of us, but so would cleaning up a crime scene. After nearly a minute of tense silence, I felt something push into my side, and I looked down and saw Albert palming his flip phone towards me. I grabbed it and held it in my hand, uncertain of what to do. "Go set up the hazard cones," he said, speaking louder than he normally did. I turned and popped the door, sliding out of the seat. Before I was all the way out, he whispered, "Call the non-emergency line and ask if there's an officer here." I nodded, closing the door and scurrying to the back of the truck. I dialed the number for the dispatch line and shoved the phone against my ear with my shoulder grabbing the traffic cones and the flashlight that were kept in a storage panel in either hand. I set out the cones on the road south, then shuffled around the headlights to set up the other pair. All this time, obscenely loud "please hold" message is blaring in my ears so loud that I'm wincing, and it's messing up my hearing. That's why I didn't hear it at first. As I stand back up after dropping the last cone, I hear what sounds like a garbled shout coming off to my left. A chill runs down my spine, and I turn to look at the direction it came from, the flashlight following my gaze. That's when the chill turns to full-blown ice clutching around my heart. There's a coyote perched on the far side of me, its fur a mangy mixture of yellow and brown. Its eyes are terrifying. It's full of hunger and what I swore could be hatred. Its mouth open like a door falling off its bearings. "I can't get the hazards on," it said. Coyotes don't have voices, but even if they did, I'm sure that this one's wouldn't be normal. It wouldn't be a serial killer's or something. I don't know. It's weird, I know, but my brain was going 12 ways at once, and that's what my memory of that moment was. It sounded deep but shallow at the same time, just wrong. I took several steps back, the sun bright of the headlights making everything to the left of the animal invisible. "Boss!" I shouted nervously, glancing over the cab of the truck. "Boss!" "What, boy?" Albert's voice turns from annoyance to fear in a single syllable. The coyote easily leaps over in a single bound and starts to inch towards me. "Aw, shit. Aw, shit. Don't turn your back on it, but don't look it in its eyes either. Back up. Yeah, back up towards the truck. Slowly. Turn and you will die." I started to creep back, every fiber of my being screaming for me to run for my life as Albert's words faded into an intense, harrowing silence. I could barely keep myself from turning and fleeing. "Turn and you'll die," I repeated to myself. "Keep backing up slowly." The coyote kept inching towards me, the paws scuffling the asphalt towards me. It opens its mouth and repeated the phrase with the same limp motion. It was getting closer, and I picked up the pace, moving as fast as I could, but the coyote was getting closer and closer, and a feeling ran down my back as fear and panic seizing me increased to nearly petrifying levels. I didn't want to, but I just knew, like the sort of way you know something horrible is going to happen, that you can't do anything to stop, that I'm going to run. I tensed, hoping God or anyone else listening that I can make it to the truck before the coyote does, but then I felt my legs come out from under me and I fell backwards, my eyes staying locked on the animal. It tensed and started to lunge as my ass hit the pavement. But then the air is filled by the crack of gunshots. Air whooshed by my head and I flipped around and sprinted for the truck, ripping the door open and leaping inside what feels like a single movement. Truck flies backwards and screams. The sound of scraping tires filled the air. I slammed the door shut just in time. Albert throws us into a multi-point turn and roared back down the road to Gallup. I turned in my seat and stared back towards the stopped car. The state police car was shaking violently, but I couldn't see anything else through the tinted windows. As the car slowly faded out of view, I see, or at least I think I see, I'm not entirely sure, but the coyote stepped out on the street on two legs. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure what I saw, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. As we hurled down the road, I sat in stunned silence for what must have been like 15 minutes. After I'd recovered somewhat, I looked over at Albert, whose eyes were studiously fixed on the road ahead. What was that? I stammered, the shock keeping me from getting my words out. Some Navajo shit, he grunted. How? What? It talked. How the hell was it talking? I asked, unable to stem the tide of thoughts. Did you shoot it? You shot it, right? Then how did it jumped over me, I think. Yeah, it did, and then it attacked the officer. I kept rambling on as we raced through the city, doing what in hindsight must have been 20 miles above the speed limit. As soon as we were back at the shop, Albert jumped out and ran to the opening of the garage and dropped the metal covering thing over it. He came back and turned off the car, gesturing for me to follow him. I did, and we went back into the office where he made a pot of coffee and poured it and handed me a cup. By this point, I had sat down in the waiting area and Albert sat at a chair a few spots away. Drink up. You can't go to sleep tonight, he said. How come? I asked, hoping to finally get an answer. Albert sighed. Look, all I know is what we saw was some Navajo spirit. They're faster and stronger than we are, and if you see one, your only hope is to get to a truck and get out of there. They're a mix of human and animal, and I think they have a chase instinct like coyotes and wolves do. That's why I told you not to run, 'cause I thought it would. Anyway, the only thing you can do is run. You can't shoot it, at least not without special bullets. Regular ones just piss them off. And then when you get to a solid building, you have to close and lock all the entrances, cover any windows, and stay up until dawn the next morning. God willing, they'll leave you alone. If you see one again, talk to a shaman. He stood up and shuffled off to the back room, calling over his shoulder, Don't bother asking. I don't know anymore. He came back with blankets and rags, and we covered all the windows and then stayed up talking for the rest of the night. Albert had had a long and weird life, and he told me about some of the stranger things that had happened to him. I might tell some of them here if y'all want to hear them. Next day, I went back home and slept for a full day, and we didn't take any calls on the res for the next week. Partly because of the incident and partly because of a massive pileup on Route 66 near the state line that kept us busy for the next couple days. As a footnote, in August of that year, I was talking to a res cop near another disappearance case, and he told me that back in January, a state policeman had turned up at the door of a trailer a few miles away in the middle of the night, buck naked without a scratch on him. When they found his car, it was covered in blood and a mixture of coyote and human, but none of it was his. It entered the pantheon of weird shit that happened on the Devil's Highway, the first such entry that I had any part in. But those are a story for a different time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
Listen to this 911 call.
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Okay. Where are you at, sir?
I'm on 210. I just crossed the Black River. I'm heading towards 53E. I just passed Patriots Watch.
Okay, so you're over near Morse Creek?
Yes.
You saw a man standing on the side of the road? What was that, sir?
I'm failing!
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the back of my truck!
Looked into this. That call came on August 31st, 2021 at 11:03 p.m. from this man just called T, who says he saw a bleeding man in a Civil War uniform along Route 210 near the Black River, which I just showed y'all on Google Earth. That was an injured man, so he slowed down to stop, and that's when he realized it was in the bed of his pickup truck, and that's when he started screaming, "It's not human, it's not human," and then he heard a thud when he stopped abruptly, and whatever it was in the bed of his truck rolled off his truck. He saw it stand up and described it as being easily 7 foot tall with long, scrawny arms and legs. But after a few seconds, he saw it bolt into the woods, but when the officers came out, they found long scratches in the top of his truck, but they had no idea what caused it, so I did some digging into what this could have possibly been. Turns out that area does have some cryptid sightings of what they call the Beast of Bladenboro, but as you can see, this looks like a cat, and this was known for taking pets and livestock in the 1950s. Then I searched my email for North Carolina 210 to see if I had any stories about this, and this one was sent July 15th. I don't know if this is related, but I'm going to redo this email. It says, what did I see? First, hello. My husband said I should tell you the story in hopes maybe someone has had a similar experience. It was late one night between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was driving home with my baby. At the time, she was a little over 1. I was in our neighborhood approaching a turn on the side streets leading to our home. Side note, we live in the rural part of a pretty populated county in central North Carolina. The back of our home abutted a huge cornfield, which always creeped me out. Another note, I have always felt and seen things and did grow up in a very old and active house as a child and teen. I have experiences and still do, but this was different. I saw a figure dressed in overalls with a big, floppy, and almost old school looking farmer's hat. I was walking in the only way I can adequately describe it. It was walking in my direction at an angle, cutting through people's yards, heading from the area of my house to the main road of the neighborhood we are in. She said it was walking but making up too much ground, like slow motion walking but fast. But its face was pale white, featureless, and expressionless, literally just blank with black eyes, totally black, and it was tall. In the darkness, this is what I saw. It almost reminded me of a Michael Myers mask, but it wasn't. Everything was so clear but no detail. I had the most uneasy feeling, scared and more. I drove past it as fast as I could, and I never looked back. I grabbed my baby and ran in the house and locked all the doors and windows and blinds and just sat in the living room until the sun rose. I have never been so shaken and disturbed. I don't know if this is related, you guys, but this is the story that I had in my inbox from the same area, so make of that what you will.
Right behind me is one of the most haunted roads in America. You're probably wondering, why are these sides so deep? Okay, I'm 5'11". Do you see that? These ruts were all made because of stagecoaches that ran along this road for over 150 years. They would gradually pull off more and more and more dirt, leaving these massive ruts, sometimes being 12 to 13 feet high. Now, why is this road so incredibly haunted? Well, before 1865, there was a lot of things that traveled down this road and people. A lot of theft, a lot of piracy, a lot of riches, and a lot of farmers. And what did they do with people that were thieves? Well, let's just say they would make them swing from the trees so that as the carriages went through, you could see them, and it would be a reminder. There's also a lake that's right over here, and when the carriages would stop, it would take a couple of days to go there. They would stop and bathe and get some water. Well, back before 1920, most people didn't know how to swim. And so that led to a lot of people, well, not coming out of the lake. Oh, good, it's raining. Well, I'll be coming out here soon, along with another one of my friends, and we'll be doing an investigation here in the pitch black, in the darkness, to see if we can meet some of this road's greatest mysteries and characters. Let me tell you, it already feels creepy right here, and it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't even imagine what it's going to be at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Look at this. Look at this. Look. Do you see? That's the top. What I really want to do is come out here with my metal detector and go through, because people on carriages would throw stuff out of the windows and it would just get lodged. Boom, boom, boom. Imagine what we could find in here. But until then, enjoy the beauty.
Did you know Missouri has a zombie road? At least that's what they call it. Now, the zombie road, officially known as Lawler Ford Road, is a notorious abandoned road near Wildwood, Missouri, and it is considered one of America's most haunted roads. The road was originally built back in the late 1800s. The zombie road served as a route to transport timber and gravel from local quarries, and over the decades, its reputation has evolved from practical road to a paranormal hotspot. Now, over the years, people have claimed to experience strange things on the zombie road. At night, people have claimed to have heard strange noises and whispers, sudden cold spots and feelings of dread, reports of people feeling like they're being watched or being pursued. Now, is there a legend behind this road and why it's haunted? Of course there is. Della Hamilton McCullough is central to the haunting of the zombie road. Her tragic story took place in the late 1800s along the railroad tracks parallel to the road. According to legend, Della was struck and killed by a passing train. Now, some people say that this was just a tragic accident and nothing more, but others whispered that this probably was something more sinister. But this happened back in 1876, so I really doubt that we're ever going to crack the case here. But on August 24th, 1876, the St. Louis Globe-Democrat posted this news article, and it reads as follows. Yesterday morning, Mrs. McCullough, wife of Judge McCullough, who formerly held a seat on the county bench for many years, met with a tragic death in Glencoe, Missouri. The deceased lady, who was 75 years of age, had been gathering beans in her garden, and while crossing the track of the quarry branch of the Pacific Railroad, which runs from the depot to the river some 200 yards distant, was run over and instantly killed. An inquest was held, and the verdict returned in accordance with the facts. That means it was fine. It was exactly what they say it was. Or was it? No, it was fine. I don't have anything to add to this. Sorry. But it goes without saying, ever since countless visitors have claimed to witness her ghost. They say she appears as a shadowy woman dressed in white, wandering silently along the tracks in the twilight, searching for something that she can never find. Some have claimed that she is searching for her lost beans. I completely made that. I made that up. Scratch that from the video. Sometimes those who have encountered her have felt a sudden sadness or overwhelming despair, while others claim to have heard a quiet sobbing, only to look and find that there was nobody else around. Now, the restless spirit of Della Hamilton McCullough is said to haunt the zombie road to this very day, still walking the tracks, trapped forever. Now, if you're wanting to check out the zombie road, it's in Wildwood, Missouri. It's pretty easy to find. But I do have some words of caution here. Don't go at nighttime. Don't even try. And the reason why I say that isn't because the spirit of Della Hamilton McCullough is walking the zombie road at night, looking for her next victim. That's not it. It's not that at all. It's because it's closed at night and heavily patrolled by police officers. And I am telling you, from experience, they will run you right out of the zombie road faster than the spirit of Della Hamilton McCullough. Dammit Man.
There's a stretch of Highway 87 outside of Great Falls, Montana, where drivers swear they've hit something or someone only to find nothing at all. This is Haunted America Creepiest Lore from all 50 states, and we're rounding out the M's with Montana. Montana's Black Horse Lake, just off Highway 87 near Great Falls, looks like an ordinary shallow lake, but it hides one of the state's most terrifying legend. Drivers passing by at night tell the same chilling story. A man suddenly appears in the middle of the road. He's disheveled, stumbling, his face pale and twisted in fear. You don't have time to react. You slam the brakes, feel the impact, sometimes even hear your windshield crack. Heart pounding, you pull over, expecting a body, but when you step out into the cold night air, the road is empty. No man, no blood, just silence, and maybe your own cracked glass staring back at you. Locals say he's tied to the lake itself. Some believe he's a spirit of a native man who drowned there long ago. Others claim he's a drifter, struck and killed on that stretch of highway decades ago, cursed to relive his final moments over and over again. The most unsettling part is that drivers report that the phantom's eyes lock with theirs at the moment of impact, wide, desperate, pleading, burned into their memory before he vanishes without a trace. So if you're ever driving Highway 87, I recommend slowing your speed, because this ghostly encounter will have a lasting impact on your car, your nerves, and your psyche. Montana, you were a lot harder to find lore for than some of these other states I've done so far, so what are you guys hiding over there, huh? This one was definitely an interesting one nonetheless. Have you heard of it, experienced it, know someone who's seen him? Let me know in the comments. Follow for more lore from all 50 states. We finally made it to the end states. Stay eerie and curious, and I'll see you in your next encounter.
I had a horrific experience in Gatlinburg, Tennessee recently on a haunted road that I didn't even know existed prior to this day. But before I tell you my experiences, I feel like I should tell you a little bit of the history of the road, because it does kind of play into what I experienced, at least some of it. There is a road tucked away in Gatlinburg that is best known for its pretty scenery. When you drive on it, you can come across trails, cabins, waterfalls. It's just beautiful. But there is a story behind it that is pretty tragic and haunting. So let me tell you the story of a girl named Lucy. So in the early 1900s, it is said that one of the cabins that I mentioned prior caught on fire that held Lucy and her family. And unfortunately, Lucy did not make it out. Well, some years later, there's a young man riding through the woods on this trail on his horse, and he comes across a young woman barefoot just kind of wandering around. And of course he stops and he's like, "Hey, do you need a ride? Do you need me to take you home?" And she says, "Yes, please." So they chat, everything's fine. He takes her to the cabin that she tells him to and drops her off, and everything's good. He returns home and cannot stop thinking about this young woman. So he returns back out to the woods to that cabin, and instead of knocking on the door and the young girl answering, he is met with her parents. The parents inform him that several years earlier, Lucy had actually passed away in a fire, and it was not possible that he picked her up that day. It must have been someone else. But he describes this young woman to the parents, and they stand there shocked as he describes their daughter. That is really the only haunted story that came from this area. It's said that you'll see Lucy wandering around. She may ask for a ride. Several people have experienced just a young woman wandering the woods, and they have no explanation for it, and she always looks the same way. So with just this story as my knowledge of the road, I tell my husband and friend that we are in fact going to go and they better be ready. And they're like, okay. So here we go onto this 5.5 mile road. And I was excited for the scenery too, to be quite honest. Our friend's a photographer and she wanted to take pictures too. Everything was fun. And for the first half, nothing was really that bad. I had my little spirit talker app out. I know some people don't think it works. I do, just from personal experience. And I got a few messages, and I do genuinely think if that story is true of Lucy, whether or not it happened or her energy was conjured up from so many believing in her, I think I encountered her. There was one instance before we got to the second half of this road that I had my arm out the window. I think I was filming, and it got cold. It dropped bad.
It says it's 74. It feels way colder.
It feels like it's in the low 60s. That's wild. I did tell Lucy to come say hello. Maybe that's what she did. Yeah, it's dropping, like, rapidly. She definitely was like, okay. Put your hand out the window. Like, it's dropping. Y'all, when we were in Gatlinburg, it was 95 degrees. It was registering 73 on the car, which makes sense because we were in the woods. But it was frigid on my hand. I couldn't feel my hand. It had froze. No one else experienced that. They experienced the temperature drop, but it was just my hand that felt like that. And I truly think she was holding my hand. I do. I didn't feel anything negative from her whatsoever. It felt very, warm, which is funny because it was so cold. But it was like warm and cozy and safe. And I honestly think she was holding my hand because I had directly addressed her to come see us. And that's just what I think. Now, we did get a few messages on the Spirit Talker app hinting at, something being ahead. And we kept going. You can't turn around. There was one point where traffic got stopped. We still don't know why. It looked like people were taking pictures of something. We got up there was nothing. Perhaps there was a bear or something that ran away. But we get up there and there was nothing. And there was little messages on the Spirit Talker app that was saying, like, this is funny and things like that. Because I was kind of starting to panic because we couldn't turn around and we were just stuck in the woods. And that's not somewhere I ever want to be stuck, to be honest. Everyone in the car saw the same thing inside of a cabin. And it was one of the scariest things that I've experienced in my life.
Apparently.
I see something standing in there.
Oh, lovely.
Do you see it?
Where?
Left side. Left
open door?
Yes.
No, the tree's blocking.
There's something standing in the dark. I see the whole outline. It's a little boy. There's a little boy. Do you see him? He's right there. Do you see him?
I think so.
The whole outline of him. Do you see him?
Comedy. No, okay. You didn't need to say that.
No, I see something much taller.
I see a little boy.
It's something.
There went an orb.
Oh. Oh.
It's something pretending to be a little boy.
Yeah.
And right before that, the Spirit Talker app had said the little boy likes you. After that happened, we left and we were driving away. There were no cars now. It was like we were alone, which is weird because there was cars the entire time. And that kept happening. When something creepy happened, it was like there was no one there. And our friend kept saying that she didn't want to look behind her because she felt like something was back there. And so I moved the phone to record because I didn't want to look either. But I had to look to make sure I wasn't just recording her, like the car, and I was. So I moved it, and I saw this black shadowed mass behind us. And I actually got it on camera. We saw things that could have been fey traps, shadows, and all kinds of things. The second half of that trail had some of the worst energy that I have ever experienced in my life. And it's terrifying because it is a one-way road and you can't get out. And you're at the mercy of people that are in front of you if they are, or otherwise you can't speed because there's wildlife. Like, it is truly horrific. And if you are claustrophobic or have like a fear of not being able to get out of places, I wouldn't do it ever. But with that being said, if you do want to experience something creepy, I recommend going there when the sun's going down like we did, because, I mean, we had experiences. The fact that everyone in the car saw the exact same thing is really, like, reassuring to me, because usually it's just me that sees things, but not only them seeing it, but catching it on camera was insane. I think something followed me from there, so we're gonna have to deal with the repercussions of that. And this is just a reminder to make sure your protections are rock solid before you go places, because things can latch.